Hey guys, it's Amber, and I'm going to be working on a really fun interactive project for my December daily album. So I am planning to do my take on one of the lit up album ideas. I've been waiting for some lights to come in. I had some that were amber color that I didn't want to use because they were very yellow, and then I got sent the wrong thing. But I actually found this pack of 12 lights on Amazon for like 12 bucks. And they're supposed to last for 3 years. So without hardly being on at all, I think that is going to be really awesome. So my plan is to use this paper from Crepe Paper Snowflake Collection, I think it is. Oh, the Hey Santa collection as my base. I'm going to make this the size of the full page protector, so it'll be 6 3/4 by 8 1/4. And instead of doing a tree, because I've been thinking about doing a tree, it'll be for my Christmas Eve page. But I want to use a sentiment that Ali released in the 2020 prep party class that said something along the lines of, I hope you're never too old to search the skies on Christmas Eve. I originally thought about pairing it with some black constellation paper that came in the main kit, but it's only a 6 by 8 size. I need to make it slightly bigger. It's going to have to be kind of thick and heavy duty, so I'm not sure that will be substantial enough, and I won't be able to put it in a page protector. So I'm deciding to go with this paper here, and instead of a tree and doing like a zigzag, my thought is I'm going to do a circle with a transparency with the phrase in the middle, and I'm going to use the lights in either like a circular pattern kind of, but I'm thinking more of like a zigzag, so it'll kind of look like a star potentially. I don't have a circle die cut set. I don't use them very often. I usually just look for things in my house. So I actually went around and found something that is the size that I want it to be. So keeping in mind that it's going to be 6 3/4 wide and needs some stability, I found this, which is like not quite 5 1/4. So what I'm going to be doing is, and I needed something that was like stable, because I was looking at like paper plates and things. So this is my pancake mix. I'm going to be using this to trace the circle, cut that out. Then I'm going to be, so one of my plans is to make the cardboard bigger than the circle opening will be, because you want everything to be outside of the opening, and if it's all the same size, you'll see where things are connected. I'm thinking honestly about using washi tape just to help me get it in some sort of pattern, and then using my tiny attacher to staple around the pieces of this. The lights are actually pretty spread apart, and it's kind of long. I'm not even actually sure what the length is, but it's pretty long, so I think I'll be able to zigzag. It's very lightweight. It is a little thick. I don't know how thick the Tim Holtz ones were, but I have to keep in mind that this needs to be accessible, so it'll probably be like right on the edge of the paper, so that I can just boop, boop, turn it on and off. So I'm going to be using this as my frame to help be sturdy enough to hold the page. And then I'm going to use some of this foam adhesive strips to help me support it. This is the equivalent of like at least 3 pieces of this, so see how that goes. I also have foam sheeting around here somewhere that I know can be used for card making to give you like solid thickness. So I need to see if I can find that. I might use that instead. And I'm just going to kind of be experimenting. So I'm not even sure yet what the paper on the back is going to be. I almost want to maybe wait and see what my photos will look like, and maybe decide on the paper that will be on the back side. The only problem with that is that like at least I'll know what lid I'm using, so that I can like, you know, cut the circle out. Or I could decide to leave the back solid so that it's just looking like white. Like the transparency only needs to be showing the lights. It doesn't necessarily have to go all the way through. So that's something that I need to kind of keep in mind. But I'm excited to get started. It's the first time I'm doing something like this, but I've had this in the back of my mind for a while. I originally planned a tree. Everyone's doing trees. So I don't think I want to do that. I also considered making it look like a snow globe. So the circle would be here and then creating some sort of base to make it look like a see-through snow globe, especially with it being lit up. I'm considering adding, if I do that, adding some Tim Holtz Distress Mica Flakes to it, which I have to figure out where I stuffed those. There. So I have these like Distress Mica Flakes, which are really reflective and could look really cool with this. I also have the glitter. I could sprinkle a teeny bit of glitter, but I'm thinking the flakes would be good. So I have a lot of ideas. Can't wait to get started, and I will be putting you on fast forward and walking you through the steps once I kind of figure this out. The other thing I have to do is create the silhouette vinyl cutout and figure out how I am going to decorate it. Like if I'm going to leave it plain, if I'm going to make it look like a snow globe. I have all those things to consider. So I hope you're excited, and I hope it comes out like I want it to. Okay guys, so first thing I am doing here is grabbing my very old Making Memories 12 by 12 trimmer, and I'm trimming this to 7 by 8 1/4. I originally said it was going to be 6 3/4, but I decided to give myself that extra 1/4 inch in case I needed to trim it for any reason or if I made any mistakes. And then I'm also trimming down the cardboard piece as well that I'm going to be using as my base to slightly smaller. So this is going to end up being probably about 6.5 by, it's just under 8 1/4. And I'm taking my punch template and I'm punching the holes right away so that I keep those in mind with whatever I'm doing for the rest of the project. I have a video I can link to you for my punch template, which just makes it easier. You don't always have to reline things up all the time. You just add, put your paper in front of the template, punch, done. So I'm just kind of double checking my sizes and realizing that I need to trim my edges a little bit more here so that they'll fit within the holes. I didn't want the cardboard or the second back part of the layout to also have holes. I just was worried it would be harder to turn. So I only wanted the first piece to have. So here I am getting ready to make my first moves here, and I'm tracing the lid. It's about 5 1/4 inches left to right, and what I'm doing is just taking a tiny little blade, slicing through the middle, and then I will be trimming the rest out with scissors. I very briefly considered doing this with a silhouette. It would have been cleaner, but I always worry about ruining my good pattern paper by sticking to the silhouette, and it always seems to make it like really curly when you peel it off as well. Even though my silhouette mat is starting to get less and less sticky, I still worry about ruining things. It would have been nice to have my front and back be exact, but at the time I wasn't thinking of it. So in the middle of doing all that prep work, I had also gotten my design ready. And I happen to already have a piece of this vinyl material that was 5 by 6 inches, so I just decided to make that my base. The actual design itself is probably about 3.5 to 3/4 inches tall. So what you see me doing here is I'm using some tools to weed out the centers of all the letters, and then I'm going to peel the top piece of the vinyl off, leaving only the design left. It was actually a pretty clean removal. It only tore a tiny bit in between the C and the H of Christmas. All the rest of the letters and pieces pulled out awesome, which is great. Sometimes things tear a little bit, which is always disappointing, but this was a nice clean pull, and I just had to remove that little bit there and look for a few little pieces. Sometimes when you're pulling up those little centers, they pop right off and stick to something else. So I'm grabbing my transfer paper after making sure that the size fit in my circle the way I was hoping it would. And I have a little tool here just to help me press everything down. I'm peeling it off, and I had a few pieces of the underlying paper stick to it, so I'm just grabbing those off. And I'm going to set that aside for a moment and then clean off my transfer paper. And then here, it's very hard to see, but I'm cutting a piece of clear acetate. I buy it from Graphics on Amazon, same kind that Allie uses, but I will link it in my information. And I cut it to a 6 by 6 piece. It fit perfectly within my window frame and left lots of room for me to add adhesives and things around the outside. So I'm going to grab my Making Memories basic gray magnetic mat here, and I'm basically using it as a grid so I can make sure that this is super straight, and I'm actually mostly focusing on just putting it in the center. I'm not really worrying. I kind of looked at the top and bottom to make sure it was centered that way, but I just looked for the center of the design, eyeballed it up, and threw it on there because it doesn't really need to be perfect. I can adjust the window behind the circle die cut once everything's together. So I finished rubbing it on a piece of cardboard. It just had a little bit more give than the magnetic mat. Peeling off the transfer paper, had a nice clean pull there. And I'm actually going to save that paper. You can reuse them multiple times, especially based on what you're using it on. Sometimes you don't want it to be so sticky, unlike more sensitive papers. So really, really happy with the way this came out. The vinyl I'm using is like a stainless steel metallic black from American Crafts. And here I'm looking for some wide washi tape. I don't really care what it looks like because it's all going to be hidden, but I want something that's got a good adhesive to it and is nice and wide. So I'm just using the Studio Calico one that I happen to have in my stash. Double checking that the alignment is good. Noticed a little piece of something on there. So I peeled that off and just making sure it looks straight and aligned, and then holding it in place while I put that first piece down. And then from there I can just kind of tape all around it, as you can see there. I wanted it to be really nice and secure and not accidentally come up or anything. And just this part alone, this would make a really cool just transparency on its own without all the lights and everything going on. I just think it's really pretty. So what I'm doing here next is I'm lining up the lid underneath there onto the cardboard. I was trying to find something larger to trace, but I realized that I can just trace the lid size that I need and cut a bigger circle because I definitely do want the cardboard piece to be, I think it ends up being about 1/4 inch wider so that I can hide the wires and the staples and the washi tape behind that circle a little easier. So I'm tracing that out, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before where I grab a blade, slice through the middle, and cut it out with my scissors. And I'm just kind of making sure that things line up. You know, measure twice, cut once kind of thing. I always could do more cardboard, but I was pretty lucky in that just about everything went pretty smoothly in this project. So there you can see I'm just kind of eyeballing it up. I was using smaller scissors at first because they were heavy duty, but then I realized I just needed my bigger scissors. It was a little harder to cut through with the smaller scissors because it's thick. So just a rough edge around the outside, and then I'm going to line it up a couple more times just to make sure everything looks okay, and I end up needing to trim like an uneven edge just to get it smooth because it was a little close to the top left corner there is a little closer than I wanted it to be. So just getting that where I want. And then the next step is just getting my lights out, getting them straightened because they've been coiled up for a while. So it's kind of just pulling on the wire, checking them to see about how far spread the lights are. And they're pretty far spread apart. They're about 4 inches or so. And trying to decide where I want to put my battery. So I knew I wanted it to be on the right-hand side just because it's easier to find and remember. And I skipped all of this part. So I used red line tape to mount the battery because I didn't want it to fall out. And then I just started stretching it across the circle and taping it down and then bending it back into a different direction. And it worked out well because the lights are so spread apart that they kind of circle my phrase without being too busy looking underneath it. And I'm going to be a little close up here. I ended up using staples to reinforce over the wires. And now I'm going to get ready to work on building around this. I'm just trying to flatten the wires a little bit so that they're as smooth as possible. And I'm going to be taking these, I have like 9-inch strips. They're really thin, like maybe 1/8 of an inch wide. And I'm going to be building up 3 layers all around the outsides and kind of supporting around the circle as well. So that's going to take quite a bit of time, so I cut out most of that. And then I decided that I needed to use some black paper to cover my plaid design because the cardboard doesn't completely cover it. So this was one step that I wish I had done right from the very beginning, because what I could have done was trace the circle exactly where it needed to be, and it would have been a little bit simpler to deal with, but I was able to make it work. And here I am using Gina K 1/2 inch wide terrific tape, it's called. And the reason I'm using such such strong adhesives, I should say, is because this paper has transparency on it and it has washi tape, and so I did not trust rolling adhesive to stick thoroughly, and all the weight of the project is going to be connected to this from the base. So I want to make sure that it was really well stuck down. So I have 3 different sizes, so I used 1/2 inch around the top 3 sides, an 1/8 inch in between the holes and the outside, and then another 1/4 inch just to give it some more support closer to the circle on the inside of the holes. One of the really nice things about this product is the tape backing peels away really nicely. As soon as you get your finger in there, it just rips right off. And then I'm going to attach my black background. It's just some basil style cardstock that I got at like Joann's or something with a nice texture. Just smoothing off some dust and fingerprints away. And then I'm going to mount this down, and then I'll trim around the outsides and repunch the holes again. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit more here to the back of the cardboard. I've added more Gina K terrific tape around the outsides and right along the edges of the circular part just for some support. And I'm going to be mounting my copper paper. So that was a specialty paper that I purchased from Hobby Lobby, I believe. And I'm going to be flipping this over, mounting it right to the top, and I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just going to trim right around the outside. I considered making it smaller, but the nice part about the back of the paper is it was plain white, so if I decide not to put anything on the back, or I can add more pattern paper later, I can add a photo. It's just a nice clean surface to work on in the album. So now I'm just about ready to finish up the entire thing here. I'm just kind of testing everything out, making sure the spacing looks right, making sure it feels okay, and I'm going to start removing all of the stickers off the top layer here. And jump ahead a little bit, and then I'm gonna, I thought about trying to do it upside down. I was like, I can't see anything. So I'm just gonna line it up from the top, try to double check my top, bottom, left, and rights as I go, and pretty happy with how it laid down. Did a little pressure. I wanted to get some nice even pressure without smushing anything. Saw a little tiny bit of washi tape stick out there, so I just trimmed that off. And then one thing, and just testing it out, seeing how cool it was. I really love the way it came out. But one thing I did notice is the bottom right-hand corner where the paper is overhanging the battery a little bit. I realized I needed a little bit more support there, especially because it'll be a spot that gets grabbed to turn the light on. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the double-sided sticky tape in that part of the corner of the page. And I'm just sticking it in the album, seeing how it looks, and love it. So just giving a nice up close look at how everything is looking. Okay, so I wanted to test it in my album, and I am actually really happy with how it looks. So it is going to be a little thick. I mean, it's 3 foam pieces plus cardboard and several layers of paper thick, but I only did the holes on one side so that if it was double thick, I thought it'd be a lot harder to spin. And then right down here in the corner, bam. So really loving how it came out and super excited to, finish adding stuff. I did still consider adding the mica flakes, but I was kind of worried about how they would get caught up with the lights and stuff because of the way I ended up doing this. So I'll just save them for another filler pocket, I mean, somewhere else in my project. Thanks so much for watching.